Welcome to the Cast Blast Grill Chill podcast with Jeremy and Trevor, the podcast that's all about hunting, fishing, grilling, and chilling out and having a good time in the outdoors.
Alrighty, Trevor, and we're rolling.
Well, how's your day been, man?
Oh man, it's been a Friday, and a Friday that acted like a Monday all day. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat, man. I'm glad it's the weekend, and I'm gonna try and get out and do some fishing this weekend. I'm on call, and doing some moving, but I think I'm gonna try and get out and at least get a line wet,
Well, I was looking at your little office and recording studio there. It's looking awful bare. All I see is the single map now, and
That's
I
all
see all
that's
the
in here.
boxes are gone. And so I guess all you got left is your desk and the map, huh?
Yeah, well, I'm sitting right next to two blind bags, a shotgun, a muzzle loader, and a scent control bag. So my hunting stuff's still shoved over here in the office. But other than that, man, yeah, I'm packed up. I'm ready to go. I got tomorrow and the next day to move and moving towns, and so should be exciting. A little bit of change. Hey, I'm gonna be closer to the public lands. I like to bow hunt, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah, he's going to shave off about 30 minutes off of that time for you. Also put you a little
Yep.
closer to me, which is nice.
And closer to the coast. So that'll be real nice here come spring and summertime.
Exactly. Well, before we get too deep into this, I want to tell everybody to go ahead and, if you can, go ahead and like our Facebook group, our Instagram. Go ahead and like and rate our podcast, please. Please. I'm only begging a little bit. Don't make me beg a lot.
He's only down on one knee for now, guys. I don't want to see him get down on the second one.
But yeah, if you guys can do that, and like I said, we're Cast Blast Grill Chill on just about any place you can find us. We do have Twitter. It's Cast Blast Grill, but I don't use it because I don't understand Twitter. It's above my pay grade. We're getting real close to hitting 100 members on the Facebook group or page or whatever you want to call it. And when we hit 100 members, we're going to go ahead and we've got a Black Arctic Cup with a Cast Blast Grill Chill vinyl sticker on it and a buck knife, and we're going to give that away. If anybody wants to, either message us on the Facebook group or email us at castblastgrillchill@gmail.com with, any way that you think it'd be a fun or neat or interesting way to give it away. Yeah, go ahead and hit us up. We're all ears. We want to do something, different than just a like, comment, and share. We've tried to do that a couple times. Nobody was really interested. I hate those things, so I understand why nobody did it. So
Yeah.
we're gonna try to do
I hate
something.
it.
We're gonna try something a little bit different. Where everybody who listens, if they just tell a friend, will trust you that if you email us and say that you did it, we'll put your name in the kitty and then we'll draw out of the hat.
Yeah, because at least we'll work on the honor system here and take everybody as a stand-up citizen, and we at least know you're listening to the podcast if you get that. So
Exactly. And then the other thing I wanted to kind of bring up here a little bit is that we've got a pretty exciting collaboration coming up here at the start of next month. We're going to announce it. We've already been in talks, and we've got kind of all the details hammered out. And I think it'll really help us with some new content, getting some guests and some other stuff lined up, and give y'all another voice to get at us. To help spread the word and tell hunting stories, et cetera, so forth and so on.
yeah, so that'll be announced on the 1st of February. So that's something to look forward to. I know I'm ecstatic about it. I've been thinking about it, and we had a long conference call last night. We had about an hour and a half conference call with this person, and I really think this is going to work out in the best type of way for both parties.
I 100% agree with you.
Great. Well, I think we're gonna kind of pick up where we left off after the last podcast, and kind of possibly even take a step back to Christmas waterfowl.
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead and finish wrapping up the last couple of things that we didn't really get to wrap it up because you were kind of rapidly getting into
I
the area
did.
with no
I
service.
yeah, I was deep in the valleys in East Texas, man. So yeah, I was losing you. I think we dropped about probably 4 times, but dropped that call. So yeah, we had to wrap it up. But yeah, so Christmas time, it's our kind of tradition to do Thanksgiving, and the past 2 years we haven't got to make that happen, but maybe we'll move it over to Christmas. And
Well, no, we hunted Thanksgiving. There's only one year we've missed on Thanksgiving.
oh, I thought you were in Arkansas for Thanksgiving this year.
This year, but the year before last, we duck
Oh,
hunted
oh, okay,
Thanksgiving.
gotcha. Well, regardless, we hit up Christmas this year, and we uh, we had this spot starred on both of our maps on Google Maps for, I don't know, 4 years now.
Yeah, at least 3 or 4 seasons.
Yeah, and I mean, it's been one of those things that we just have had it starred, and it looked difficult to get into. And in the past, before I even had a real boat, with a motorized boat, we were thinking about trying to do it in the canoe, and it's just way up in this river, and it's basically a honey hole back up a river, and it looked real tough to get to on Google Maps. So I ended up getting a bigger motor for my boat, and to test out the motor, I figured, hey, I'm gonna go, and me and my girlfriend, we're gonna go out and we're gonna go fish, and we're gonna go fish this hole, and I'm gonna go find it and see just how, if I can even get back up into it and how difficult it's going to be. So we kind of adventured over there, and got back in there pretty easy. Only had to go over one down tree, and I was pretty confident that, much bigger of a boat than mine, unless it's got a winch on the front of it, was going to have a hard time getting past that tree. So that made me feel like, hey, we might even have like a little honey hole back in here that not too many people can get to if they do know about it.
Yeah.
And so we get back in this hole, and it's basically a little pond off of a finger of a tributary, and there's a small landmass in the very center of it, and there's already duck blind built on it. So I sent you the pictures of that, and I don't remember exactly what you replied, but it was something to the effect of, well, that could be really good or really bad.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I said. Well, I was like, well, it's, A, we don't have to build a brush blind or hunt out of the boat blind, but B, either it could be shot out or we're going to have a fight in the morning, one or the other.
Yeah, and so not knowing whether or not a ton of people had known about the spot or had claimed this spot already, and they had built that blind after that scouting trip I did, went fishing, having that prior knowledge that, hey, there's a blind there, so somebody's going back in there, putting some effort in, so it's probably worth the spot. And this is completely public lands, and I'm not even sure if you could build a blind out there or not.
I'm not. It doesn't say that you can, but I also haven't read any regulations out there that say you can't. I think
Yeah,
it's one of those kind of in the gray areas.
yeah, and
I mean, I'm quite
so
certain. I'm quite certain either it is legal or it isn't legal. It's just one of those things where we've never on that particular lake hunted out of a blind. We've always hunted out of the boats or hunted out of a brush blind in the willows.
hmm So knowing that some people have been there, we got the bright idea that we're going to go camp back on some primitive camping way up the river from this place, getting us in a very slow boat there quicker than if we were going to leave from the boat ramp, being that the only boat ramp is way across the lake. So we get there in the evening time, about 3 o'clock or so in the afternoon. The day before we were going to hunt, we were going to try and get in like maybe a little evening hunt, if we got out there in time and everything, that evening. So we fire up the boat, and man, we're loaded down because we got, yeah,
the backpacking stove, propanes,
3 dozen decoys.
3 dozen decoys at least. a full load for your little boat.
Yeah, cooler. I think we had 2 fishing poles for that night in case we got bored.
Yeah.
Water and all that stuff. So yeah, we were pretty loaded down for a 12-foot John boat, man.
Yeah.
And so we scooted across, about 60 yards,
I was going to say 50, 60 yards tops.
and putt, and we're losing power and not getting any gas.
Okay, well, and that's bad enough on a nice, slick, calm day. Not on a day where when you woke up that morning it was 70 degrees. We get out there to the lake and it's done dropped to 38-ish and blowing 15, 20 out of the north.
In a flat bottom, that is not a comfortable ride, especially a 12-foot flat bottom, loaded down with gear and 2 grown men.
Yeah, and taking water to the sides.
Taking water to the sides, it was not a good situation for your motor to be making the wrong kinds of noises. So immediately, I'm glad it happened there. I'll say this. I'm glad it happened there. And so I was able to troll the motor back to the nearest bank right next to the boat ramp where we were luckily already in the waders and just were able to hop out there. And I was like, man, it sounds like I'm not getting any gas. And it was something to the line of, well, this looks good. And, the choke's not out. The fuel line is sending fuel. And,
yeah, I came to the conclusion was like, it's acting like it has water in the gas.
Yep. And it had been misting all day while that cold front kind of pushed through. And I had left the vent open on the gas cap. So that definitely let some water in. So we take it apart and we grab the pliers out and pop the fuel line off of right after the filter on it. And cause that was really the easiest place to get to, and drain it into a bucket and,
drain all the gas out of it.
All the gas in the bucket, man. And that fuel line is the smallest fuel line because this is like a 5 horsepower motor. So it's, so we're draining and trying to get it past the filter because we can't pull the filter off without taking all this other crap off and blah, 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 blah.
Well, and then the funny thing is then we take it and we crank it up and run it on choke to run what little bit of gas and water is left in the carburetor out. And that took another 10 minutes after we spent 45 minutes, an hour.
Yeah, which tells me that thing decently efficient.
Well, I know we ran all the way back in there to that spot and all the way back, plus running around setting decoys and everything else in the boat, and we never had to refill it.
No, yeah, and it's only a 1.2 gallon tank or something like that. It's real small, but yeah, so we get everything drained out, get it bone dry, run the stuff out of the carb, put new gas in it, get the gas to it, and man, it fires up and it runs fine. We jump in and we're like, all right, we got to get there. So we got there with about 5-10 minutes till end of legal shooting time.
I think we had 15 minutes because I think we got back into that spot. We just shoved up against the bank.
Yeah, and actually spotted some guy in orange. I guess he was just standing out in the middle of this like ragweed field, and I guess he was I think Dove had opened up by then, or he was pig hunting, or I don't know what he was doing.
Pig hunting could have been deer hunting.
I just glanced him, and we were trying to get a couple minutes of hunting, and it was like, all right, let's just push up against this bank, and if anything comes over, sorry, bud, like we're gonna take advantage of it. Like, sorry.
Well, and we had a bunch of real good flights. About 15 minutes after legal.
After legal, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we probably saw 200 ducks.
Yeah, unlike deer hunting where you can keep hunting 30 minutes after sundown. Waterfowl and dove is cut off right at sundown because, man, that is the best flight, is all that time after sundown for 30 minutes, man. But so that was kind of a bust. Didn't kill any birds. So we run over, we set up camp at the primitive camp, and it got cold.
Yeah, it did.
I'm glad I brought that little propane heater with us, man, because without that thing, I'd have been chilled to the bone.
Well, yeah, me too, especially since I was sleeping in that lovely sleeping bag.
Oh yeah, why don't you tell everybody about your lovely sleeping bag?
Yeah, that was so I'm one of those guys who's kind of a organization nut when it comes to my gear. I like my gear. Everything has a place. Everything belongs in its place. Well, all my camping stuff and all my hunting stuff goes in plastic Rubbermaid totes whenever I'm not, using it and, traveling to wherever I'm going and back from wherever I'm going. Well, I had a real nice 0 degree slumberjack mummy bag. Notice I said had, because I had one of those Rubbermaid totes catch a big gust of wind going down Highway 6 about a mile from my house. Like as soon as I got on the highway at 75, I look behind me and I hear a big thump sound, and I look and there it is, cartwheeling down the road.
Bye bye.
It had that sleeping bag in it. It had a propane heater in it. It had basically all my cold weather camping gear was in that one tote. I would manage to get everything back. The propane heater didn't survive. Everything else in there survived. Oh, my sleeping mat, my thermarest didn't make it either, because the thermarest itself made it, but a truck managed to run the valve, the self-filling valve over.
Yeah.
And so, it was always filled, but as soon as you laid on it, it deflated. So it no longer served its purpose in life. So I pitched that too, but I pitched that in the heater immediately. But as I was picking up all this gear off the highway, dodging 18-wheelers and grandmas and college students all doing 85 down Highway 6, I was like, cool, that was everything that was in that bag. I was like, but wait, where's my sleeping bag? So I start creeping down the feeder. I go 2 exits, still no sleeping bag. And finally I'm like, I don't know where it is. So I get back on the highway and start going. About 10 miles down the road, my son goes, Daddy, was your sleeping bag blue? I go, yeah. He goes, it was there on the side of the road. So
You're like, wait, we've been going a while.
Well, I told him to keep an eye out for it, because what I figured is it had either snagged on the bottom of a truck or gotten stuck on the grill of an 18-wheeler.
Yeah.
And I figured either it was going to show up or it wasn't going to show up.
Mm-hmm.
And it showed up, but it had a few holes in that nylon. And let's just say that
No. Hold on. Holes. We're talking about like a Halloween pumpkin size hole for one of them.
Well, yeah, but I kept that part in the stuff sack.
Oh, well, thanks. Okay, you can
now the one that was about the size of a softball that was up there by my face, causing me to choke and gag on down all night. That was a different story. But yeah, so anyway, we pitched all of our cold weather gear there in the tent, and ran the heater for a little bit. I waited to the last possible minute to take that heater out, because I knew it was going to be a real shit show. So
I was fine.
Oh yeah, you were nice and warm, and I was nice and warm till about
choking
and stuff. Trying to keep the holes closed up till about 2 o'clock in the morning till I got good and asleep. But yeah, when we woke up in the morning, why don't you tell everyone what the tent looked like?
It looks like he slaughtered about 50 geese or an entire flock of snow geese into my tent. Like, I mean, we're talking about a couple of inches worth of down, covering everything, including all of my gear, because we're sleeping in a 4-man tent, so it's not big.
That was a 2-man tent.
Well, it realistically it's a 2-man tent, but the tent rating is 4-man.
Oh, really?
But yeah. I want to see 4 guys pack into that. Actually, I don't want to see that at all. But
I don't think I could fit 2 Thomases and 2 Caitlyns, and that's my son and my daughter. But I don't think I could get 2 of each of them in there in that tent.
No, I don't know who they're measuring or what they're measuring, but every tent's like that. It's like, all right, divide it in half, whatever they say it is.
Pretty much.
Yeah, unless it's like a marmot or something like that, it's like.
This is a 2-man tent.
Yeah. So yeah, it looks like a goose exploded in this tent. But yeah, so we wake up after a nice night of below freezing temperatures, down coming into your breathing orifices, and a belly full of Mountain House macaroni and cheese and chicken
Lasagna
and rice and
and
lasagna.
lasagna.
Yeah, yeah. While your mom's texting me pictures of gumbo from the place they're eating at and all
Yeah,
this stuff, so that was great.
that
But
was real nice of them.
so we decided that in case anybody was going to come in, we're going to wake up at 3 a.m. because that's just kind of the kind of people we are, man. It's like you're not going to beat us to the spot, and if you are beating us, it only takes one time, and then we're going to beat you back. Um, so we wake up at 3, we tear down the tent and everything, and motor on over in frigid temperatures, and get to the spot. Nobody's there. Get all the decoys out and
Throw
and
Mr. Buddy up in the
throw
blind.
Mr. Buddy up in the blind, brush that horrible looking blind out, man. Um, if whoever built that blind ever listens to this, I want to offer my services for the next time you build a blind. I just feel like it would help us both out.
Yeah, definitely. You obviously have a chainsaw. Go back in
Yeah.
those willows and cut a few branches and brush it in just a little bit better so it doesn't flare the birds quite so bad.
Yeah, I mean they had the right idea. This is like a pallet fronted, and then they put some 2x4s up to raise the front up.
They got
They graded like how the roof was gonna fall, and then the 2 plywood doors hinged was nice. I could have used some windows on those, and then the back's basically on a rise of land, and then a bunch of bigger tree
plywood.
branches on the back.
Yeah, it
Oh,
was
and
with
then there was some plywood
it
as
was on the
well.
plywood back, and it was brushed. The back of the blind was brushed with really well, which half makes me think the guys that are coming in there may actually be bringing. There was some camo netting that wasn't in great shape and some burlap around there that wasn't in great shape.
Yeah, but
You
if they
know,
bring in some grass mats or something like
well,
that,
that's kind of
they may be doing that.
because if you brought in either some grass mats or even like a couple tumbleweeds or some oak branches,
Yeah,
some limb clippings, you could brush it in real quick and make it disappear, and
yeah.
then it wouldn't flare birds.
And they had a cheap wooden cot in there. I guess maybe they were making a bench seat and maybe run 3 guys out of it, or maybe he's a single guy and he liked to sleep in his blind to secure his spot. I'm not sure what it was, but yeah, we didn't sit on his chairs or anything like that. But we did hunt on out of his public blind that he built. So um, going forward to legal shooting time, I'll let you take it from here.
Let's see. What about legal shooting time? Let's see. We got in there. We got all set up. We had 2 or 3 groups of ducks fly over um, that we never saw. We heard the wings, but they came from behind us and never crossed in front of us. And then there was, as always on public, the guy that's shooting 10 minutes early, 5 minutes early. Just can't let that early wood duck go or can't let that early teal go. And then I guess I guess the next group of birds that came and worked was that single,
Hmm.
and you hammered that ringer. I mean, you hammered him good. And then we had the duck that I know landed on the water, but I never saw.
So it landed on the water, and I told you, hey, there's a duck on the water, but it landed over here in this other hole that we didn't have enough decoys to fill. And we were both like, well, let's just leave it and I'll sit over here and I'll kind of keep my eye on it. If it either jumps up or is swimming over here, whatever, then we'll do what we're gonna do. But it's so it hung out about 80 yards from the blind at all times. I mean, it would not come clear, come near at all. So eventually I'd taken my eyes off it after about 15 minutes of it hanging out, and it got bored with our decoys and nothing to eat and got out of there.
And then and then I guess we had a long, dull time. The guys behind us over on the river, they were having a heck of a shoot. Um, we watched birds work into where they were a couple different times. Um, we could have shot at them, but I'm not one to sky bust birds. So
And then we had the group of gadwall that were gadwall or pintail that were working over, and we were working them in perfect. They were coming into the spread,
that was the
and then the guy,
pintails.
and then the pintails. Okay, yeah. So we had this group of probably 7 pintails.
Yeah, 6, 7 pintails.
Yeah, yeah. And then so they were working in, and I mean they were gonna decoy. I mean they were gonna decoy hard, but right as they were about to make that commitment, the guys behind us on the river shot,
About
and
7,
they were
8
shooting at
shots.
another group, but yeah, and they said nope and
Yeah.
got out of Dodge quicker than I've seen a duck go in a long time.
Yeah, and then we had that group of gadwall that kind of the same thing happened. They were coming in cupping, and we were waiting for them to fully commit. And
Yeah,
right about that 40-yard mark where I was just about to call the shot, either that blind flared them or they saw something they didn't like, and they busted out of Dodge. And then we had the Christmas Miracle Mallard.
Christmas Miracle, Lone Drake come in. I mean, and
This greenhead came in perfectly cupped. He landed coming in right at the dead far end of the decoys, right about 35 yards.
And the thing is, he surprised us and came in over the trees and then just decoyed. We didn't call at him. He decided he was going to land there.
Yeah.
And it was a total lack of communication on my part, and I got excited. I didn't call the shot, and I busted at him. Then you busted at him.
Well, yeah, about the time you shot, so I'm pulling my gun up going, okay, cool, I guess we're going to shoot at him now? I figured we'd at least let him, get his feet right on top of the water first, but okay.
Yeah. I got excited, man. I saw
that big old, that old shiny green head coming in.
Head and long neck, and I was like, ooh, that's a duck.
It was a big duck, too, and
Yeah.
Anyway, we wound up throwing 6 shots at him, and that last shot you slung at him, I literally watched feathers fly off that duck, but he just kept climbing and kept going. I don't think we put a single pellet, lethal pellet in him.
Those pellets sunk into the down and kind of he got out of there. So, yeah, man, I screwed that one up. That'd have been a nice end to that little trip and that little cold night adventure, but. We hung out for another hour after that, and we had to get on to a family Christmas party. So we had an hour and a half boat ride and car ride back to the house. So we came home with a ringer. But we checked the spot out, and we know what's there now. We know how to get in it, and if we do want to go back, we know what to expect.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with that. And hey, man, that's another night spent out in the woods that I did something more productive than stare at Netflix.
Oh yeah, and it was a heck of a lot more fun than staring at Netflix. It may have been cold, but me and you, trying to figure out what the phantom light, whatever that thing was lit up behind us, and listening to the different sounds, cruising in the woods.
That and the coyotes and everything kind of going off. I'd much rather do that than be in my house at all.
Yeah, same here. Well, then so I guess we did family Christmas, and then I guess that was actually the day after Christmas that we went out to the public lands. No, that we went out to the public lands over there by my house, because we went back to your house. We put everything up. And then I came back home.
Day after Christmas. Yes.
And then I did Christmas, and you did Christmas with your folks. I did Christmas with my mom and stepdad on Christmas Eve. And then
the day after Christmas, we went out to the public lands near you.
Okay, so we went and did that, and that was probably would have shaped up to be a pretty decent hunt.
Yeah. So we got in there, and this is the spot that I've been bow hunting all season long, and we're right next to my stand, and we're hunting there because every single time I'm deer hunting, I have 200-300 wood ducks, man, come right over, and I keep saying I'm just gonna go sit in my deer stand with a shotgun, and I'm gonna shoot my 3 wood ducks. And I'm gonna go home by 7:20, and so that was half my plan going over there, and then I got to thinking about it, and we just carried in like half a dozen decoys or a dozen decoys or something like that,
Carried a
and threw them on
dozen.
this little, yeah, and threw them on this little pond. And I was like, well, there's no use in me going 40, 50 yards down this tree line and setting up in a deer stand if, I'm going to be working against you if I go do that. Because the flight line they're taking, I'm going to be shooting at birds and busting them up and giving them warning before they even get over to you.
Well, you could have
Was
killed.
my,
Well, my whole thing was you could have killed your three. It wouldn't have bothered me.
yeah, but I was like, well, I'd rather sit here and, BS with you and, maybe we'll both get our three right off the bat and we'll get, because I mean, like I said, it's 50 yards. Like, I didn't see much of a difference.
No, there
There was a
wasn't.
difference,
Well,
but
there
there
was.
was a difference.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a difference, but I think that was more of where we decided to sit first thing in the morning than um, anything else. Because yeah, they all flew behind us again.
Again, yep.
And I
So,
mean, and I should have known. I've hunted out there deer and ducks enough for long enough to. I knew exactly where those ducks were going to be. Knew exactly where they were going to fly. Knew exactly where they were going to land. But what did I do? I'm like, well, the wood ducks are going to do this, but all the other ducks are going to do this. So rather than,
yeah,
so it was what we should have done was gone over there, shot our three wood ducks over there where they all fly, and then walked over there to the decoys.
yeah, coulda, shoulda, woulda. But you see, that is the difference. Is my tree stand is 10 yards from the river,
Mm-hmm.
and we were about 40 yards from the river.
Yeah, and they
So that is just enough to get you off of it because they fly right over my head and right in front of my face. But 50 yards down the line, that tree line's running away from the river. So that was the difference that I'm talking about. There is that 40 yards that we can't make up for.
well, I mean, we could have tried to shoot them, but
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
gonna,
yeah, yeah.
I'm not gonna try and hit a screaming wood duck doing Mach 3 at treetop level, at
At
35
barely enough
yards.
shooting light when they're flying. Yeah,
Yeah, well, I mean, at 35, 40 yards, whatever we were away from that flight line, like by the time we heard them, they were
hmm
already past us.
yeah. And another thing that was different, I was hunting a lot of clear days,
Hmm.
and the flight was always at a specific time on that day. We were hunting on an overcast
Yeah,
day,
super overcast day.
and so the flight didn't start until you know like 10 minutes after legal, and usually it's like right at legal they're gonna come in waves, and then it kind of like trickled in. It was a lot different. So that definitely played a factor.
Yeah, and then we sat there and we worked a couple groups of birds, a couple groups of teal, a group of gadwall, and a group of spoonies. But none of those birds we could either get to commit or we were busy doing something else whenever they'd come work. And after about the third time of birds working right over our heads, we decided we got to change sides. So we
Yeah,
walked.
I straight up hopped up and was like, "We're moving now."
Yeah, so we walked around to the other side, and I'd say within 10 or 15 minutes of us
Yeah, if that.
getting over there, we worked another group of green wings. We took we took one out of that group of green wings, and I'd want to say it was probably even less than 10 minutes. I'd probably say it's probably like 3 or 4 minutes because I think we were still getting
It was
settled.
Yeah, because it was almost immediately because it was. I remember I was picking up my lanyard again out of my bag when I was like gathering my stuff. I took
Yeah,
my lanyard off and threw it in there, and then I was getting it back out, and then you hit them with the whistle on that you had, and they worked in. So, but yeah, knocked it, and I had to run after this green wing, y'all.
well, he was
And
he was he was in the water. You said you were going to go get him. About the time you got about halfway over there, he jumped over the edge of that
jumped up onto the bank.
and then went for a little flappy run.
Yeah, so his legs were fine, by the way. His legs were perfectly fine. Um, and so he's running, and I mean, this is like thick little short stubby elms with lots of little grabby branches, and so I'm running around like the hunchback in Notre Dame trying to catch this green wing, and finally he gets caught up by some thick grass there, and I'm able to grab him real quick and bring him back. But yeah, you got a nice little show.
Yeah, it was definitely a good spot to sit and watch rather than being the one chasing birds for a
Watch the
change.
watch the bird dog work a little bit.
Yeah, I always like working dogs. But unfortunately, we didn't have Cedric because I mean that would have made Cedric's day to go chase that one down. But then,
Oh yeah, man,
but
he'd
then,
have loved that.
yeah, but then shortly after that, the worst thing about being on call and hunting is the dreaded your phone rings.
Yeah, so
Well,
my phone rings,
and
and
my phone had already rung that morning, and like there was just nobody there, and I tried to call him back 3 or 4 times, and he just wouldn't answer the phone. So I was like,
yeah,
all right, I guess I'm
yeah,
good to
well,
go. He's not answering his phone, but you weren't so lucky. You had the answering service calling you.
yeah. So unfortunately, there was a unavoidable thing, and I'm about an hour and 15 minutes away. So then I'm like, all right, man, tops 15 minutes I can stay, and then we got to hike back, and I got to go, and yeah, so that was our hunt there. I mean, that was it.
Yeah,
Uh,
I did show you exactly where those wood ducks like to land and hang out when we were walking out. I was like, I bet you they're right over there on our right. And you're like,
yeah,
oh, well, look at all those wood ducks over there.
yep.
There's only about 100 of them over there.
Yeah, yeah. So they were all hanging out and taunting us and laughing at me for being on call, but yeah, that's the way it is, man. I've had a weird waterfowl season. It's been real weird, and I've crossed one entire lake and river off of my repertoire of places I'm gonna go
Yeah,
hunt waterfowl because I've had too many bad hunts out there that just it's not worth my time or effort. Because I do take it seriously when I go out there, and I'm there early. I'm usually the first one to the boat ramp, and I'm staying late, and it's not working out.
you're having to work awful hard for 2, 3, 4 birds.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah. So I mean, I'm just gonna cut my losses on it, and I'm moving further away from that property anyways. So
On
I'm
to
gonna I'm gonna switch it up a little bit.
on to better things.
Yep.
And then well, I went on the first actual guided waterfowl hunt I've ever been on. Right there just before the new year, I went and did a guided goose hunt in a cut rice field, and it was a lot of fun. Got lucky. The guide had scouted the night before and found the birds in this field and put the decoys out actually the night before, so that saved us from having to help put the decoys out. Um, we met up at the Buc-ee's at 4:45, 5 o'clock, something like that. Grabbed a coffee, grabbed a taco, and went and hung out and uh, met the other guys that were going on the hunt with us, and went out there and got the dog unloaded, got on the 4-wheeler and or the
The mule.
it wasn't a mule. It was actually a 6x6.
Oh, like a gator.
Yeah, kind of like a gator. With
Okay.
a carry rack in the back. For guys to ride. With side by side bench seating.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay.
Like where
Gotcha.
normal the bed would be. They built in seating there instead of
Hmm.
having a bed. And then in between the seats was a spot to put shotguns and blind bags and stuff.
Oh,
And
that's cool.
yeah, and he carried us out there in 2 trips and went out there and put out about another 100, maybe 200 silo socks and silo socks with the heads, feeders and century geese, and got in our white Tyvek poncho coats, to lay down and mix in with all the decoys and settle down. And it was cold, but it wasn't super cold that morning. That big January freeze, that big New Year's freeze that we had that literally froze up ponds around here. Was just a couple days away from blowing in, and um, saw tons and tons of birds. They didn't really get up super early. In previous times where I've been around guys goose hunting and stuff, they typically get up and get off the roost, and get out to feed, generally that first 30 minutes you'll get you'll start hearing them, moving. Even, an hour before, you'll hear them out there, just honking and making a god awful
waking up as if like you're hearing some rafted ducks on big water or something like that. It's just starting to get antsy and wake up and kind of get active before they take off for the first flight.
Well, I mean, you'll even hear groups get up and go. Where I like to hunt down the coast, a lot of times I'll hear them birds get up and run. You won't see them because it's still too dark, but I mean, you'll hear, it might just be 3 birds, but 3 snows can sound like 100.
Yeah.
Because they like to make a lot of darn noise. But anyway, so we hear a lot of birds when we're first getting ready. That 45 minutes, 30 minutes before sunrise. That last little bit before the eagle. And then it got real quiet and still, and I was like, well, this isn't good. And then we just started seeing them groups coming from the south. Just steady groups. Here's 100, here's 1,000, here's 500. Just giant, just V's stacked on top of V's stacked on top of V's, just steadily one after the other. The only problem is those geese we were hearing in the morning, they were on the other side of the road from us, and they never got up. They sat there.
So now, real quick question, I'm sorry. Do you think him going in the night before, after scouting and finding those birds, going in and putting decoys may have knocked him off that field?
I don't think so, because he said the birds had already gotten up out of that field. He'd seen them earlier in the day because he'd gone on a duck hunt earlier in the day, and when he came back and was scouting the fields, they were there, after the duck hunt. And then when he came back in the evening, they weren't there anymore. And he talked to the rice farmer, and he said that they'd been in there pretty much every day for the past 3 or 4 days. And
that's a good sign. I mean, whether or not that they've kind of worn out that spot or whatever it might have been, or they didn't like. I think they didn't like those other birds being there, or what, those decoys basically, or whatever it was.
I think the decoys may have scared them off. It's getting, it's already getting pretty late in season. Birds are getting decoy shy. I was right next to the guide, and I know the guys on my left weren't moving, weren't yucking it up and, doing, all the stuff that sets
you're not
off.
Supposed to do.
All the stuff that'll flare birds. But there was 2 other guys that they didn't know that just, had joined up as a pair on this hunt. And could those guys have been doing something to flare the birds? I don't know. But the biggest problem is that other group of snows. They were in a very freshly picked rice field, like picked the day before or 2 days before, and they had all the food in the world, and they had real good visibility and a good tree line and stuff, and they were sitting
no
out
reason
there.
To leave.
They were not moving. Like, I drove by and honked at them whenever I left, trying to get them to jump up, because generally that'll jump them up and they'll take off and go, and somebody else can go.
Honked with your vehicle.
Yes. Got
Okay.
there and blow the horn at them as you drive by at 70 miles an hour. But not only do we have those geese there, another bunch of geese sat down. Like, first thing in the morning, we saw them. We worked them in towards us. They just landed short. They landed in another field just before they got to us. Okay, geese stop short all the time. And then there was a bunch of specklebellies that came in and were getting real close to range, and they picked something out of those decoys they didn't like, so they circled around, at about 80 yards, and then went and landed in the field back behind us. And that third group of geese is the one that just ruined it for us. Every time we get geese within about 60 yards, that group over there would pull them, or that group of snows would pull them, or that little smaller group of snows would pull them. And we'd get groups. We had probably 200 sandhill cranes in different in different groups of 2s, 3s, 4s, 10s, 12s coming over, and we would get them. We worked one group to we only probably need another 20 yards,
Hmm.
to call a shot on them. And I guarantee you somebody in that line moved and those darn sandhills picked us out. There's
Yeah.
not a single solitary doubt in my mind that that's what happened. Somebody didn't stay statue still, because Sammy, the guide, he worked those birds and worked those birds and worked those birds. And I mean, he pulled them from, they were up there with oxygen.
Sky high. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And I mean, it was an overcast day, but it was that high overcast,
Hmm.
and every single group of birds was flying that high overcast, like right at it, because there would be a couple groups where we'd hear them and we never see them. But I mean, intermixed amongst all of us, we probably had 1,000 ibis, like
Hmm.
walking around us all over, the decoys and stuff.
That's pretty cool.
We had ducks buzz us
Yeah.
on more than one occasion.
Hmm.
We're laying down the field, and I mean, I literally could have reached up in the air and snatched a teal out of the air. He flew that close to me. There was no way I could have shot him, but I for darn sure could have snagged him out of the air. And then I got buzzed by a big duck too, kind of that same way. That coming up from my feet, just never saw him, because you're laying down in that that rain slicker, with the hood up, and you're leaving only
Yeah. You're leaving your eye gap.
from your nose to your eyes, and you got your face mask on and your gloves on, and trying to stay statue still, and you're only
Hmm.
looking with your eyes, and you got your hat pulled down so you're shading your
Yeah.
eyes, so
Yeah.
you're not pie facing them birds at all. And I mean, we managed to get one group to work, and out of that group of three we killed one. And the guide was willing to let us sit out there and try and work at it, and try and see what we could scratch out later in the afternoon. But we'd all pretty much had enough, and we went back.
Yeah.
We went back and we picked up all the decoys, threw them in the jet sleds, hooked the jet sleds up to the 6x6, and rolled on out of there and sit back. The guide was nice enough to open up his flask of Weller whiskey and pass it around to everybody to grab a nice little nip out of to warm up. And
Yeah.
um, the guy I'd rode with, one of the guys I'd hooked up with, one of the Facebook groups I'm a member of. Um, he used to live in the neighborhood with me, where I lived in Houston, and so we wound up going down there on that goose hunt together. And it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't a barn burner by any stretch of the imagination, but it was definitely a lot of fun, and I saw a lot of birds, and that was one of my first times to ever actually get to tote a gun on a field goose hunt. I'd set Texas rags before for a guy a couple times, but that was it.
Yeah. So I have a couple questions for you about it.
Sure.
So I've never been on a goose hunt, period, guided or not. Aside from, seeing geese and duck blind, I've never specifically set out for it. So from a couple of articles that I have read about it, do you possibly think that there couldn't have been left enough space in that decoy spread? His landing zone may have been off. I don't know what it looked like, and you were the one there, but because that's one thing that I think a lot of guys that don't do it a lot forget about, is what this article was saying, and that's one of the key things is, just like in duck hunting, to give them a clear landing zone, especially when those big groups are going to come in. Maybe spread it thick around you and then thin it out right in your landing zone.
Yeah, we definitely did the kind of the way you're supposed to do it. We definitely had a clear feeding line,
Mm-hmm.
and back behind that feeding line, we did leave kind of hollow pockets for the birds to land in. And Sammy guides all the time. He's been guiding for years, so he's like, lately we haven't been killing the birds on the feeding line. They've been trying to land, in the first little pockets kind of back behind it. Because yeah, we left a bunch of 20, 30, 40 yard gaps, kind of, 2 or 3 of them kind of where we were sitting. And plus we were sitting where if the birds wanted to land on the feeding line, to try and beat those other birds to where the food was, we could, that was well within range as well.
Okay.
And then, so we were kind of right there, right in the meatiest part of the spread. And then from there, it worked up to that feeding line up in front of us, which kind of worked like a big crescent moon. And then the birds kind of got thinner and thinner and thinner back behind us.
Gotcha. Yeah, not to knock the guide or anything. I just, just trying to get like a mental image of where y'all were at and what your surroundings look like decoy wise. And
The
it
biggest,
very well could have been, there's food everywhere else and there's big live groups of birds that are moving a lot better
yeah,
than your decoys. And
yeah. I mean, that's exactly what it was. I mean, a couple of the groups that came and got close, you know, they picked something out. Like I said,
yeah,
did they,
yeah,
do they know what silo socks look like? Very well possibility. It's late season.
yeah,
We didn't see any blue geese. No juvenile snow geese. They were
hmm,
all, white snow geese, educated,
yeah,
smart birds.
yeah.
Um,
They've
and
seen it
from
all the way down
Canada,
from Canada to here. So
yeah. And I mean, but the biggest problem is most of the birds just short stopped us. They'd be
yeah,
coming from that way, coming from the south, and we're north of them, and they had to cross those two other groups of geese. And the speckle bellies,
that'll definitely do it
well,
then.
yeah, and then the speckle bellies that were, back behind us, the birds would come at us, but and they'd look at us, and then they just tip to, if I'm looking at them, they tip to my left, their right,
Hmm.
and just go that extra, 80 yards over into that next field over. I mean, we had,
Yeah,
plenty of birds, that were close enough, and I know guys who would have shot at those birds, but Sammy never
yeah,
called the shot because, only the two guys down on that far end are really going to have a shot, and
hmm.
for him to call the shot, you know, early,
Every time, and those guys are shooting it up, and then the other guys are, or calling it early and making a bad shot, and
yeah, and I mean, there really wasn't a whole lot, we could do about it. I guess we could have gone and pushed over there to that fence line and try to shoot them, as they tip to make that corner over there, but then we would have literally been laying in 6 inches of water.
yeah, that's no fun.
No, it was a lot nicer to lay up there on that levee than it was to go
Yeah,
lay
yeah, for
actually in the
sure. In the
rice
middle of
swamp.
the rice field. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, man. And last question: would you do it again?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, I'm wanting to get with Red Eye Outfitters next year and go do a sandhill crane hunt,
I'm
and
in, man.
and then maybe also see if we can't do a goose hunt too while we're up there. Go up there and go chase some Canadas.
Yeah, and I'd love to talk about it. Maybe we could get with him and see if he wants to come on and kind of tell everybody what they do up there. And I'm interested too. I'd love to talk to the guy.
Yeah, I'd talked to him right before duck season really got fired off, and he's definitely on my list of guys. He said he could do it. I talked to his lead guy, or the guy he works for. He's the lead guide, but he's not the owner.
Yeah, yeah,
And
just for permission's
well, yeah,
sake,
yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah,
He already said that he's got the okay to do it. So I'm gonna um, get
great. Try
him.
and set something up. Yeah,
Yeah,
awesome.
get him on here. Here once we get past all that. And then after that hunt came the big hard freeze. We both wound up spending New Year's up in Dallas, not doing any
Yeah,
hunting, not doing any fishing, just up there in 12-degree temperatures, freezing.
yeah, the sleet and stuff, man. We saw. I mean, we saw a ridiculous amount of crashes coming back down south from Dallas, and it was dangerous. We came back, right after it hit, or the evening after that front hit up there, and icy roads and sleet coming down, and I mean, it was a mess.
Yeah, see,
People just, it was crazy.
I stayed up there till New Year's Day, till like 10, 11 o'clock. I mean, it was still like 14 degrees when I left. It was
Yeah,
it was bitterly cold. On my way back down, coming down 45, I stopped in, I don't know, maybe Normandy, maybe, I don't know. It was in
some little
between.
town. Yeah,
No, it wasn't a town. It was a gas station on the side of the road. But
yeah.
but New Year's Day, it was really bright and sunny, and I parked the car
Mhm.
on the side of the building in the shade, and like I had been in the heater and everything. I got out and immediately walked in the store and was fine. Went in there to go grab another energy drink because I was kind of feeling kind of a little bit road delirious. And was
Mhm.
like, all right, I need to do that and kind of walk around and get my blood flowing again. Been sitting for 2.5 hours, and get back in the car and you know. But as I turned that corner and got back in that shade, I was like, oh, good Lord, it's still cold.
Yeah, that wind chill was ridiculous.
Well, not just the wind chill, like just being out of the sun.
Yeah, yeah.
I hit the little temperature gauge in my car, and it was still like 28, and this is like
Yeah,
2 o'clock in the afternoon. I was like, you
Yeah,
gotta
no,
be kidding.
it was no joke. It was no joke.
Yeah, it was.
we're complaining about the cold a lot in this podcast, but for everybody out there that ain't local, we're just some simple Texas boys, and we're not used to the cold.
Yeah, I'm not equipped to deal with that. I do have a lot of really good cold weather gear now. I got a bunch of
Yeah,
Gore-Tex stuff now, but I
yeah,
mean,
and
I
I mean
wasn't wearing
that
that
doesn't
stuff.
mean that, and that doesn't mean I'm not still cold a little bit. I'm gonna and being from Texas, I'm gonna complain about being cold regardless if I really am or not.
Yeah, that's for darn sure. But yeah, it was actually so cold that TPWD actually shut down fishing for either 1 or 2 days down there on the coast.
Yeah, I think it was 48 hours from whatever date that they had set, just for, like people down here aren't used to it. It puts the winds were kicking for one, and then it puts a whole nother, level of danger
Well, yeah,
just onto the coast.
well,
And
I mean, it's what the reason why they do it is actually the biologists do it because all the fish congregate up in the deep holes,
yeah,
and you
yeah.
can
I
literally
mean,
just
yeah,
you can
put
fish
a
out
hook
a
down
bay.
there.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
fish out a bay like that. Um, I know like one of the last times they had a big freeze and a big fish die off was like back in the 80s or 90s, and I haven't heard any reports about a really bad fish kill down there on the coast with this freeze. So I'm thinking we might have gotten spared.
I hope so, man, because I'm definitely looking forward to getting down there real soon. Now that deer season's pretty much wrapped up. We're in the what about a week left of muzzleloader, and then that's it.
Yep, and then we've got 3 more weekends of duck, and then it's time
Hmm.
for small game and for me and you to try and figure out how to get on an elusive turkey hunt maybe this year.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, so where we kind of left it, I was actually headed to the national forest on the last podcast, um, going down the road, and that was Sunday morning when we actually recorded that. And I was planning on being out there Sunday night, Monday night, and Tuesday night, and coming home Wednesday evening. Um, so I'll just kind of run down my adventures of the first 24 hours of being out there. So get there, get the tent thrown up, get camp set up. It's 1:30 in the afternoon. I'm like, all right, perfect. This is I planned on being here at 1, so I already got camp set up by 1:30. Let me grab the muzzle loader, grab the tree stand.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Did you use the goose tent?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Okay, hold on. Okay, so I opened the tent bag, and I open the tent bag, and it's a plume of feathers on the outside of the freaking tent, man. And then I open the tent, and I'm like, okay, this is gonna be a mess. And so I go ahead and set it up without staking it down. And I open the door, and so it's a 2-man tent. So I grab the tent and I pick it up and I shake. I could have packed in probably like 4 cups of down. I could have packed into a measuring cup about 4 cups of down. I mean, it was everywhere. But yeah. So I did use the feather tent.
Do me a favor, throw that tent away, and I'll buy you another one.
No, it's out of there now. Don't worry, I cleaned it up. We're good. Don't worry. I solved that problem.
Are you sure you don't want to throw that tent away?
Well, so I get my tent set up, and I pull out my sleeping bag, and it's got feathers all over it too.
Yeah. Well,
shake it out.
Do all that. You go hang your lone wolf tree stand.
Go hang my tree stand, and I love that thing. It's so easy to pack in and out. I have a couple of cheap stands too, and I like to leave them in the woods for the sheer fact that I don't like hiking with them.
Well,
but
they're kind of heavy.
Well, yeah, they're not terrible, but I mean, man, that one, I can throw it on my back anywhere, and that's my go-to for, run and gun. But yeah, so I go hang it on this big oak that I was sitting on last time I was out there, and the same spot, the same little, kind of opening of some timber out there, and pines and red and white oaks kind of bordering it. And I'm sitting there for about 30, 45 minutes. Then I see a dog. And I'm like, what the heck? And I'm like, maybe it's some wild dog. I don't know. So I grabbed the binoculars. Look, it's got a blaze orange collar on. I'm like, okay. And so then I see two guys in blaze orange, and they're coming right towards me down this trail, and I'm 80, 90 yards off the main trail, which is a tiny trail as it is. So they're coming in, and at this point they're about 250, 300 yards out. And so I whistle at them just to like, hey, I'm here. If you could, please don't bust up my spot. And they didn't hear. So they kind of turn off though. So I'm like, well, maybe they heard me. Maybe they didn't. They kind of turn off and go to the side. And I think they leave for a second. And then I see blaze orange again, and I see this dog running across this little flat a little bit. And so I whistle again. I didn't see him move at all. And this whole time I'm watching him through the binoculars. And because I don't want to yell, I'm in my tree stand. I don't like doing that, man. I don't like being loud in the woods at all, period. So finally, after them just hanging out there, I'm like, all right, I have to. So I yell out hey, and no response. I'm like, all right, I'm not yelling again. I'm just going to see what they're doing. And I see that they look like they're squirrel hunting. But then I start hearing them crack branches. And they start building this roaring ass fire. And I'm like, oh man, come on. And it's just getting ridiculous. So the wind starts pushing the fire, the smoke right at me. They got a dog running all over the place. They're not being quiet by any means. They're cutting up and having a laugh. And I'm like, man, there's no use in me going over here and getting into fisticuffs with these guys over this. So let me just creep on out of here. And I know another spot that I'll go sit on for the evening. So that's what I did. Didn't see anything that evening. Go back to camp, have me some dinner, go to sleep.
What'd you have for dinner?
What did I have for dinner?
Sausage?
I had some chili.
Oh, okay.
I had some chili. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, and had me some chili. You're ready for bed. You text me. You're like, hey, you just FYI, you got this like good 2 line of storms coming at you. They look pretty good. And you ready for it? And I'm like, yeah, I think I'm ready for it as much as I can be, or something like that. And we talked for a minute, and I decide I'm going to go to sleep. And it starts raining, and it starts raining, and it starts thundering, and it starts lightning. I'm like, okay, I'm doing all right.
Yeah, the one thing I actually made sure, I was like, hey, you did look up when you pitched your tent, made sure there wasn't any widowmakers hanging up down there ready to fall on everything.
Yeah, which I did, and I picked that I wasn't going to sleep under this giant tree for that reason. So man, it starts coming down, and I had brought a tarp because I knew it was going to rain, and to put under my tent, so the water would kind of run under me and wouldn't, and all that good stuff. And I start getting these water drops, and I'm feeling it, and I'm like, oh man, this is not a good start. And by that point, it's only been raining about 15 minutes, and I know I'm looking at my phone, I'm like, oh man, I still got 3/4 of the way to go on this line, and there's another line following it. This is not going to be good. Turns out the whole back wall of that goose tent is not waterproofed, and so it's starting to flood. And I mean, I got water in the tent, man. I mean, some serious water in the tent. So
what are you up to? You up to 1/4 of an inch? You up to 1/2 an inch?
Yeah. I was at a slight angle, so it was pulled up. I had about 3 inches in the back in the back of it because I was angled down. My head was kind of tilted down towards the angle,
So is what you're saying is you did the crab crawl to the dry corner?
Oh no, I put on this redhead waterproof bone dry jacket and my boxers and my my house slippers and rolled up my sleeping bag and stuck it into my jacket and got my the hunting clothes that I had for the next day and my other clothes and stuffed it into the jacket and zipped it up and grabbed my car keys and I went to the truck. And so I spent the night in the truck and it was really uncomfortable. I was sleeping on seatbelt buckles and can't fold them down any type of way in that Dodge. And yeah, so it was uncomfortable to say the least.
Did you sleep in the back seat or did you sleep in the front seat with it reclined?
I slept in the front seat with it reclined for about 15 minutes and then laid out on the front seats all the way across.
Does your center console flip up?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know your center console flipped up because it's always been down when I've been in your truck. I didn't know if you had. Yeah, because I mean, if you didn't have that sub in the back, you probably could have laid down in your back seat.
Yeah, I've tried it before, but the back seat in the middle like cuts out and there's like a big cutout. I'm a pretty big dude, so I like roll off of that thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I stayed pretty dry considering all things, and I'm like, man, that thing is gonna be soaked tomorrow. I hope I don't have to, do too much work for it. But
You didn't have
so
to bring a bilge pump for your tent?
Yeah, I didn't have to bring the bilge pump for the tent. So I get up at, way too early because I couldn't sleep anymore, and get out about to my stand and in my stand about 2 hours before daylight, and just kind of sit there. Everything's good. Sunrise comes up and it's starting to kick the wind, and it was supposed to be a northwest wind, and that wind was everything but northwest. It was north and it was west, but it was not northwest, and it was swirling like crazy. It was hitting each other, and just I hate hunting days like that, man. When the wind's kicking, first of all, but when it's kicking and it can't pick a direction, I almost think about just leaving because I'm like, I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah, I've only had one day where I've had anything even resembling success, big game hunting, whether it be deer or hogs
or whatever,
anything like that, on a confused wind kind of day, especially when it's really blowing, because nothing's worse than thinking, all right, it's going to come, like you said, it's going to come from this direction. It's going to blow back out here to a piece of property that's all field. Nothing's going to come from that direction, or
unless I can go in the winds and directions in my favor of a known buck bedding area, and I can put a stock on that or something. I almost don't see the point of hunting it sometimes. Just in my personal experience, other guys may know how to hunt that, but I personally don't like it.
Well, and the other thing is I don't like being 25 feet up in a tree going back and forth either. That tends to make me a touch on the nervous side on them gusty days.
Luckily this one that the lone wolf was in, it was, the strings are almost maxed out to go around that oak tree. I mean, it's a big oak tree.
Okay.
So I don't feel any movement in that. I mean, I'd have to get some serious wind, but so morning was a bust, man. And I end up going, and I go and I drive over to this other Forest Service road, and I walk about 1.5 miles down it and 1.5 miles back, and the hogs have rooted about every single part of this closed road on either side all the way in as far as I walked, and didn't see anything else. Wind was still kicking and swirling and stuff everywhere I went. I'm like, all right, let me go get some lunch. Went and ate some leftover chili, backed the truck in to the campsite, and I was like, I'm a little too close to that table. Let me just pull up a touch. And then I literally just kind of watched my truck sink.
Oh, no.
I watched the whole back axle just kind of lower and lower. And I'm like, oh, shit. So I try to get out of there. Nope. And I know it's stuck. And I literally say to myself, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was like, I instantly knew because I was literally watching it sink in that clay and stuff because, been there before. But So that burnt up about an hour and a half of using firewood and digging out and getting all nice and muddy and slinging mud all over my table and everything else, and and the water cooler and all that stuff. So finally get the truck out, man. And then I look down and the damn temperature gauge is hot. So I'm like, shit. And I pop the hood and the radiator hose is spewing steam out.
Oh
I'm like,
no.
oh man. So I pop the hood and I start the truck back up and crank the heater as high as it would go to get rid of some of that heat. And I was like, I'd rather have the truck on and the heater run than it just sit here and,
Cook.
hold that and cook itself. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to leave it like that. And it took about 45 minutes to get back to normal temp, at, full normal temperature,
Yeah.
whatever that is, like 210 or whatever it is. But, yeah, so get my food in my belly and I'm like, all right, let's go back. That's my first 24 hours in the woods, by the way. It's been grand. And I'm not optimistic at all at this point.
So let's see. You get there. You get the campsite you want because there's nobody else on Camp Road, right? Or only one other person on
Correct.
Camp Road.
No, there was nobody else when I got there.
Okay. So you get out into the woods, you go hunt, and then you have dogs, squirrel hunters,
Fire.
pyromaniacs,
Yeah.
whatever. You get back to camp, then you have Noah's 40 minutes of rain in your tent and flood your tent out.
Exactly.
And so you have to go to the ark, your truck.
Go to the ark, yeah.
Okay. So
Stay afloat.
I'm just trying to make sure I got all this. And then
Yeah.
the next morning, the conditions aren't favorable. You go scout around, go look around, and then your truck gets stuck and overheats.
The ark, yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Just making sure that that it was the shit show that I was envisioning.
Yeah, you've encapsulated my shit show quite well, thank you.
Just making sure. Doing what I can.
Yeah. So I get back out in the woods, man, and the wind was still kicking. And I was like, dude, I'm so sick of this. I'm so sick of it. And I just accepted it. And I once again remind myself, man, I'm so glad I'm here and not at home. At least I'm out in the woods. And I started getting myself in a better mood. And I crack open this jar of crunchy peanut butter and give myself a little pick me up and a little food confidence. And man, the wind finally died down about an hour before dark. And I'm like, man, this couldn't have been any more perfect for the timing for this to stop. And about 10 minutes after sundown, I see a little something dart in between some trees. I'm like, what the heck was that? I didn't know what it was, so I grabbed the binoculars and didn't see anything, and then saw like something barely white, and I was like, oh, that's a white tail. Like, cool, what is it? And look a little bit harder, and I have this one little lane looking down it was about 85 yards to the nearest spot that I could range, and then they were a step past that, and it turned out to be about 10 white-tailed does in there feeding under this oak tree. And like I said, I have this one tiny little shooting lane at about 85, 90 yards with a muzzle loader. And so I'm like, if this is going to happen, everything has to go right. Exactly. I sat there for 20, 25 minutes looking through the scope, pulling the binoculars back out, saying, I don't like it. And they're far enough away, and I got enough cover because I can only see into this one little lane that I stand up. I try and brace up against something. I, try picking my knee up for a rest. I'm trying all kinds of different stuff just to get, because there's this one tiny little twig with one branch off of it that's dead in between me and the doe, and it's taking me off because I can't get it right, and I'm like, I don't want to take this shot if it's not going to be right. So I finally find my comfortable shooting position, which ended up being some body mangling, terrible, unsafe position probably. But yeah, and I was just waiting and waiting and waiting for it to turn broadside. Um, you know, I've done a couple of headshots in the past with, my rifle, but I am not nearly as comfortable with the black powder as I am with my deer rifle. So I had a couple opportunities, to take a shot at that, but at that distance with black powder, I'm like, dude, I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
Heck
no,
no.
that's not ethical at all.
Yeah, I was like, no, there's no way. Um, so yeah, finally after about 20-25 minutes, this one doe turns and is quartering to me broadside, and I'm like, oh man, you're so close.
Just take
Please
one more step.
just take one more half a turn somewhere. I don't care. Just do it. Please, 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 please. And just as like I'm on an exhale of a breath, there it is, and my crosshairs line up exactly, and I'm like, oh, squeeze it off. Bam. Plume of junk everywhere,
Yeah,
and all I hear.
It's a lot different than shooting that black powder than a ventilated indoor range, huh?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. A lot different because that all the discharged powder has about a 2 second hang time, and out there it has about a 6 to 10 second hang time depending on your wind. Like I said, that wind had finally died down, so all I'm hearing is those blowing and blowing and blowing, and I'm like, oh man. And so I grabbed the binoculars and I'm like, I still can't see. I still can't see. And then barely as the smoke starts to lift, I see her. She dropped right there and is kicking a little bit on the ground. So I'm like, all right, just kind of watch for a little bit, and she kind of worked her way about 5-10 yards and was done. So I ended up actually kind of hanging out and watching these other does, and they wouldn't leave, man. And finally, about 10 minutes after dark, I was like, I gotta go down there and start this because I got a lot of work ahead of me. So I had to jump those does off of her, actually, which is kind of odd.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've had that happen.
Yeah, and then I've seen it before, not personally, but on with other people. But yeah,
Yeah, odds are, there's a possibility either you killed the matriarch doe or something along those lines is what my instinct tells me on that one. Um, because I know for a fact when my buddy shot his matriarch doe, like they all kind of scattered and went right to the edge of the woods, and then all the does, just kind of like you were saying, there's like 10, 12 of them, a family group. They all came right back to that feeder, within a minute.
yeah. So this is all this is them in their feeding spot, and they did exactly that. They ran, I think it was about 20-25 yards to the edge of where this clearing kind of turned into thick again, and they all kind of hung out, and they're just on the edge of their safe zone, going, I don't know what that was. I don't see anything. I don't hear anything weird, but that was real loud, and now she's laying on the ground, just kind of just trying to kind of process it, and it's. So yeah, I had to jump him off though, and that's one thing I really don't like doing is educating deer in any type of way. But I had a lot of work ahead of me, and I'm about a mile and a half into the woods.
Yeah, well,
So
and you also punched your tag, and there's only another week of season. Well, I guess that was actually opening day of muzzleloader, wasn't it?
that was opening day of muzzleloader.
How long does muzzleloader last this year?
2 weeks, I think.
Is it 2 weeks? Does it last like the 14th or 15th or something like that? I can't remember.
I have it on my calendar, but it's packed away somewhere. I think it's 2 weeks, but
Let's see. Hold on, I can pull it up real quick. I got it on my phone. I got the TPWD app. I'm honestly curious. I can't remember. I remember looking at it earlier in the year when I was thinking about getting one. Go ahead though.
I believe it's the 22nd it'll end, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, so uh, get her quartered up, man. Get her hung up to keep her off the ground, and and keep her off everything, and get her quartered up. And I bring along basically my game bag because I don't hunt with a frame backpack or anything like that. Is I bring an army issue duffel bag, like a canvas bag, but it has like some waterproofing kind of stuff over it,
Mm-hmm.
so it doesn't leak, blood and stuff out of it. So I like using that, and it rolls down nice and flat to sit in the bottom of my backpack. And so I pack whatever the game is into that, throw that on my back, and then I'll either strap my backpack to that or wear it on the front. So I just wore it on the front and made my hike out, and it wasn't too terrible. Um, it wasn't too bad, and ran to town, got some ice. Went back, and I had me some celebratory sausage wraps.
There you go. Did you
So
manage to sleep in the tent that night, or did you sleep in
I
the truck again?
I did sleep in the tent that night, and I took uh, I took the one cloth that I brought for washing my hands, or drying my hands and stuff, and did that, and then I used an old T-shirt that I had brought and used that, and it had drained, but it was still holding all that crap in there. But I did leave the door open that day when I left, so most of the stuff on the walls, the humidity had left the tent. But
Yeah,
I
because
slept I slept real nice, and man, especially after that long of a day and that much stress and a bad night of sleep the day before, and finally filling that tag, I slept like a baby.
yeah, I imagine so. I mean, um, so that sounds like a heck of an adventure. I'm glad you finally punched your tag. I'm sorry it took till muzzle loader, but that's the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah, I'm glad to turn something positive out of such a bad start to a trip, but just keep at it, and good things can come.
Yeah, persistence pays off. Muzzle loader actually ends January 21st.
Okay, so I was day off.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
and then what do you think she field dressed at, or quartered out at?
I don't remember to give you any kind of estimate. I'm not going to put a number on it. All I know is that was a big doe, and
Okay.
she did have a bunch of tallow, and I don't like eating tallow personally.
No, me neither.
So some people do. Some people do. I don't know, but I did manage to take the heart with me, and I'm actually going to go and do a field and stream recipe that seen them post up about some whitetail heart, and I'm going to try that out. I had it pinned on my Facebook page for quite some time this season, and been eager to try it out. So I'll end up doing a video over that. And speaking of cooking videos, I know you did one on some campfire, or some camp. What'd you call it?
Uh, Wild duck camp stove chili, or deer
There you
camp
go.
chili, because yeah, I took a bunch of those divers and teal I shot uh, during the first split down on the coast, and took them and chunked them all up and made chili when we went on our rut hunt out there in the national forest. And um, I was been turned on to duck chili by a friend of ours, and was like, all right, well, I'm gonna try it, but I'm gonna make it, you know, similar to I make my beef chili or my deer chili.
Yeah.
And but I added a little more peppers. I added a few different kind of things to it that I normally wouldn't do for a venison chili, because I like to taste that venison meat a little bit more.
Hmm.
But I mean, the duck came through perfectly in that chili. It was tender. I
Yeah, it
mean,
was it was great, man, and it was awesome. That was the first time that I've had it, like that, without just throwing seasoning and meating it and calling it chili, or something like that. But yeah, that was really good, and that was a good pick me up for that trip that we actually discussed that on the last podcast. Um, but yeah, man, that stuff was good, and that's definitely what all of my divers are pretty much going to go to from here on out. Either that or the fryer, because I'll eat anything fried, basically.
yeah, I mean, I'm definitely a fan of cutting, you know, diver duck breast. The one thing I'll tell you about, if you're gonna just straight fry it, like we did that Gadwall that time, where we just do a light flour crust on it and fry it. is you got to cut it into smaller strips, fry it hot and fast, but you got to soak it overnight in either buttermilk or salt water or something.
Yeah,
Because
brine it or buttermilk it or something like that, huh?
yeah, you want that acid to get in there and get that, as much of that blood out as possible, because the biggest problem is you never know what a diver's been eating. Has he been?
And I did see in the video that you posted, you did put it in some, I guess, salt water in a pan to just draw any bit of that last blood out before you actually cubed it or sliced it or however you did prepare that.
Is what I actually did is it was sitting in a pan, and I took it while I was cutting up all my peppers and doing sauteing all my onions and everything. I did that, and then I initially took all the duck out and cleaned it and put it in water while I did that, and then I cut up all the vegetables and threw them in the pot, and then I cut up all the duck and cleaned off all the little bits of fat and little tendons and stuff that are still left on the breast, because when I take a breast, I take it clean down. I take it all the way to the keel bone, so I get that little tenderloin that runs through there. And all that.
Exactly.
But you got to cut that little bit of silver skin,
tendon in between,
and that tendon out. Yeah. So when I cubed up all the duck, I made sure to cut out all those little tendons and make sure, I got all the feathers off and all that. Because there's always one or two feathers that wind up in a big bag of duck like that, like inevitably. It doesn't matter how many times you rinse it off in the sink before you put it in a bag. Somehow or another.
just like deer meat, there's always one stray hair that winds its way up into something.
Yeah, you're not lying. But yeah, and then I took that and cubed it, and while I was doing everything else, adding all the seasonings and doing the peppers and onions and doing all that, I let all that duck sit, in fresh water, and I kept every about 10-15 minutes I'd go over there and take it and drain that water off, and put fresh water on it.
Yeah, that was definitely a good idea, man. Like you said, it was tender and it turned out fantastic. And if anybody wants to go check out that video, it's on our Facebook page and our YouTube page. The link to the YouTube video is on our Facebook. So yeah, just go to Cast Blaster Grill Chill Facebook page and check that one out.
Yeah, and I'll make sure to put a link to it in the show notes.
Yeah, there you go. And that'll make it easier. And then tonight I did a little short video that I'm gonna have to edit together, but I did a bone-in neck roast pulled in the crock pot.
Oh, nice. How was that?
It was real good. I kind of just was winging it. I've never done one before, bone in or anything. Most of my neck meat either gets cut into a cut of meat or goes to the grind, picking off of, in between the vertebrae and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But this time I was like, I'm going to leave it whole and I'm just going to try it like that. And it turned out really, really well. I got the crock pot. I sliced some onions into rings, laid them on the bottom of the pot, and laid 2 fresh whole jalapenos, stem on and everything, still into the bottom of the pot as well. Added half a cup of water just for basically almost steam and keep moisture in the pot.
Yeah.
With such a lean meat, I would have liked to use like a beef broth or something, but I just didn't have it on hand.
Yeah. The one thing I do want to do with a whitetail that we take next year is I want to take as many of the bones as we can, and I do want to make bone broth.
Yeah, and just freeze that, or just keep that
jar
as a stock.
Jar it up and freeze it, or
can it or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So I basically just took that whole thing and got some oil in a cast iron screaming hot at like 500 degrees and did a simple rub on it. It was it's like Adam's Reserve or something like that. It's a coarse crushed garlic, black pepper.
The stuff you got for
salt.
Christmas?
Yep. And so I finally opened it up and tried it out and just did a heavy rub with that on there and did 3 minutes per side on the hot oil in the cast iron and threw it in the crock pot. Ended up going 10 hours on it, 10 hours on low, and ended up just pulling it off. And it's nice because if you end up doing that, you don't have to worry about cutting out the tendons that run up the side of the vertebrae.
They cook down
on those muscles. Yeah, they just separate from the meat, and you can pull them like you would a really good rib bone out of a piece of rib meat.
Yeah,
It's kind of like that. And so I just took it and I shredded that. Then, added the onions and a little bit of juice back onto the meat afterwards and let it rest. And we ate it tonight, man. It came out great.
Excellent. I actually ate the last package of deer that we got last year from those Kansas deer. I'd been saving it for kind of a special occasion, and I'm about to make one of the rear round roasts off of my deer. Probably
One of the top rounds.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm gonna make that in the crock pot, probably as a beef stew kind of roast kind of thing, probably Saturday. But those ones that we had seasoned up with the soy sauce and the garlic and the habanero and the habanero peppers, the one that we vacuum sealed all in that package. Oh my goodness! I had those 2 pieces of backstrap last night.
You hadn't had that yet? Oh, dude, I told you, freezing that thing in there with it. Oh man, that's the best. So yeah, we just took all those ingredients and cut up. Was it backstrap or steak?
It was. I can't remember if it was backstrap or steak.
Yeah, but it was a good cut of meat, and we cut it into portion size and just added all that liquid to it, in a bowl, and then mix it up and add it to and vacuum seal it in there with it, and then kind of let it marry while we're doing the rest of our processing. And throw it in the freezer with everything else, and man, you have a meal ready to go. You don't have to put any seasoning. I mean, you slap it on the grill or the cast iron or the oven or whatever you're gonna do with it.
I didn't do anything to it. I didn't put a rub on or anything. I just took it, flopped it on the grill, and cooked it. And it was. I mean, your tongue trying to, beat
process all. Yeah.
No, your tongue's trying to beat your teeth out of the way to get at it.
Yep. It's good stuff, man. It is good stuff, especially when it sits in that, for as long as it did. What was that, last year?
Yeah, that was, God, by now I'd probably say that deer's probably almost, it's got to be at least a year old, because that was his deer that.
No, I'm saying when we processed it, it was about a year old.
Yeah, so it's almost 2 years old now.
So it's 2 years old, because we were donated some meat just because he was remodeling his kitchen and had a freezer that had to go outside for quite a long time. It didn't feel like messing with it. So
yeah, well, I guess we cut all that up. I guess that was about March.
Yeah, it was somewhere. I know it was somewhere around the crappie run, because we were doing that around the same time. But yeah, man, we ended up processing 200 pounds of deer meat.
I don't know. We had a Arctic 65 and a Yeti 65, so full
filled.
that you couldn't put another, vacuum packed, thing of meat. We made probably easily 40 pounds of sausage, easily.
Breakfast and link.
Yeah, because I had 1, 2, 3. I think we each had 4 1-gallon Ziploc bags full of link, and then we each had like 10 pounds of breakfast. Each had like 10 pounds of grind.
Yeah,
and then stacks and stacks and stacks of steaks.
Yeah. So here in the off season, we're going to be doing a lot more cooking, talking about cooking, talking about recipes, and, all with wild game and, some videos and stuff like that. We'll be posting up, but definitely at least talking about it. So if anybody listening has any recipes or anything that they want to share with us, please do so, and we will make it. If it doesn't look poisonous, we will make it.
And and also, if there's something you want to see us cook that we have in the freezer, or if it's something we can go out and procure it. Now, we're not going to do the Steven Ranella thing and eat no coyote, but I'm still down to try beaver. That is on my list of things. One of these times when we go out, after that.
Yeah, that and that guy, I don't remember what podcast it was, but he was talking about trapping Nutra and cooking Nutra in a crock pot with a bottle of barbecue sauce, and he's like, you dump enough barbecue sauce in anything, you could eat it. So I don't know, man. I don't know about Nutra, but I'm definitely down to try beaver. And one of my main things, I want to try beaver tail.
Yeah.
But I feel like I got to go up north to get a nice fatty beaver tail.
I don't know, man. You think up down here they really don't have to survive on it, so you think the beaver tail might just stay fat year round?
Yeah, and it may.
Well, you ready to wrap this thing up?
Yeah, man. So upcoming stuff we got going on. Super excited about the announcement on the 1st.
Definitely.
And And yeah, y'all stay tuned for that. It's going to be a big thing, and we'll continue some cooking videos, and I'll get this one out to y'all. And yeah, don't forget to go on iTunes or whatever platform you're listening from. Give us a rating or give us a review, and we'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, and let's see. Like I said, once we hit 100 people, we're going to do that giveaway. Subscribe to the podcast. Give us a rating. It helps us out a lot. I'm with you. The collaboration coming up, I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Our next podcast, we're probably going to record in the next, probably 2 weeks or so. And we'll be having our first guest on. So stay tuned for that. That'll be a lot of fun. Guy's real knowledgeable hunter. Hunts East Texas like we do. And he's going to, bring some fun information, to the podcast.
Bring some wisdom to the table. So yeah, we'll definitely have some fun with him. So
definitely. So until next time, guys, get outside, enjoy the last days of the season before we all got to go chase little bushy-tailed critters and hogs, and stay safe out there, guys.